Yeah, so I should plug something, right?
Which one if you get in the camera?
There's a cable I have. That should be good. Yeah? Okay, so I should just. Oh, that's strange. It's like I have two screens.
Yeah, maybe you need to change your screen display mode.
Yeah, but
Mirror mode?
or just one screen.
You can touch on the screen with the right. On the screen, the options will come up.
Yeah, it's a unique screen. That's so strange. Yeah, I always have new bugs. All right, let's try multiple screens. But yeah, it doesn't detect any other. Okay, what I can try and do is. It's so interesting. This is what I'm seeing. We have a single screen and nothing else. I use VGA, but then okay, VGA.
What's the other option? Can I see?
Well, that's the only, if I have an option of multiple screens and I see them there, but here I just have that.
Do you have it in? Oh, you have it in.
Yeah. That's
Okay, there we go.
now it's
Now
seeing
you-
two
yeah.
screens. Okay, so now it's I just want this. Okay, now it's working. All right, let's start. Oops, my voice is quite loud. So, welcome back after this hopefully productive but restful break. Let's start doing some microdynamics. So I've started to draw again the last graph that we've seen the last class, which was showing what the firm's decision to produce or not produce. Let me remind you what's going on. So this is the firm's average variable cost. This is the firm's marginal cost. This is the market price. This is the quantity. And yeah. Okay. And as we have discussed before, the price is something that the firm sees in the market. The firm is called a price taker. The firm does not choose anything about it. Why? Because if the price, if the firm decided to produce, that's actually a very important point, which even some of my past colleagues didn't understand. So here we go. So why would the firm choose to produce a Q star there? So we've seen before, we've said it's because the firm has to pay for an extra unit, the marginal cost for producing that unit. What does the firm get in return? Well, it can sell that unit at price P. So the question is, should the firm sell at higher price or lower price or than P or just at P? Well, if you look at it, so imagine that everybody around here can go to buy stuff at any store they want. So if they see that there's just a unique item that's always the same, there's no transaction cost, you have perfect information about anything. So if you see a store that allows you to buy at something that's slightly more expensive than the market price, will you buy at that price? Well, no, because you can find the same item at a lower price somewhere else. So it means that there's no reason for the firm to choose a higher price than P, all right? Now, could the firm want to sell at a lower price than P and get as many consumers as it likes? Because think about it, all my competitors are selling at the price of 10. What if I choose a price of 9? That's genius. I'm going to be able to sell an infinite quantity because the whole of Canada can just transport to my store instantly and buy the stuff. So it looks like a super genius idea for me to do that. Well, if I did that, then actually what I would be doing is selling at a lower price than P. And then I could choose the quantity that I want so I could choose an infinite quantity. Would I want to sell at an infinite quantity or not? Let me repeat the question. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yes, but more than that, even the marginal cost. That's the point. So imagine I did choose a lower price than P. So I chose this price, for instance. Oh. All right, so I chose this price and I think I'm a genius because I'm going to have infinite customers. Well, what's the quantity I would like to sell at that price? Well, I only make the same decision. I sell until the last unit costs me exactly the same as it's going to bring me back when I sell it. Well, it turns out that it's going to be this quantity there. So if I lower my price, I'm actually going to want to sell to fewer people than I would have if I just kept the market price. So this is why No firm is going to decide on their own to sell to at lower price than the market price, because anyways, they wouldn't want to sell to an infinite number of customers because their marginal cost is too high. And they would like to sell at a higher price than the market price. Will they do that? No, because if they do that, so they would actually want to sell more, but they just can't because everybody can go to other stores. So they're really stuck. So they don't have any choice. They want to sell at the price dictates, the market price dictates their price, and it's dictating also their quantity. That's what they choose. That's what they choose. So now, can we infer what is the quantity that the firm is actually going to choose on the market? Well, as function of price, then yes. And this is actually what we call the single firm's short-term supply. So that's what the firm will want to do. So we have seen that we have at the market level market supply, market demand. Market supply is just the aggregation of the market supply of every small firm. And so do you remember what the market supply is? What the definition of market supply? It's a relation between what and what? No, maybe that's because it's too easy. Sorry to bother you with this. So the market supply is a relation between quantities that firms want to supply and market price. So this is exactly what we have here. We are able to do the same exercise as for a single firm. And what do we know? Well, we just have to think what would be the quantity supply if the market price were here, or here, or here, or here. Well, every time we know that the firm chooses the point at which the market price intersects the marginal cost. So in fact, the short-run market supply of the firm is its marginal cost, right? So that this is why we say that supply is marginal cost. There's almost no difference. It's just that we have to aggregate that for all firms together. But so here, let me draw the supply. I'm going to try to. All right. Let me make this. Okay, so this is the market supply. So do we all agree with this? Or rather the firm's supply. Is it all right or not? What do you know about the supply curves? Yes, they slope upwards. Thank you. Thank you for being here and answering my questions. Yes, they slope upwards. So what's wrong with this? Well, it looks like it looks good on that side, but then it slopes downwards there. So here, what? This is this would be the quantity for in response to price. And here, actually, what I would be saying is that if the market price is say here, then the firm can choose either to sell this quantity or that quantity, which is not the case. So of course, the firm is going to want to sell as much as possible. setting a super small quantity would just be very bad because the firm also has fixed costs to pay and stuff. So of course you want to sell as much as possible. But there's another thing that we have discussed before. It's that the firm's decision to, yeah, let me just, so this was the firm's decision in the short run. So what did we said? What did we say? We said that the firm chooses to produce if the price is above the average variable cost. Why? Because if the price is below average variable cost, then the price is so low that the firm is not even profitable to just open the store and start selling. It's not even you're not even going to make back some of your investment. You're just going to waste money. So this is the lower bound for price. So what does that mean? It means that the actual I can't just amputate my curve. I have to draw it again. So this is what the real short-run supply looks like. And if the price is even lower than this, then the firm would just close down. So it will produce quantity 0. And if the price is like 0, then that's what the firm produces. That's my short run supply. So it works. Now it's purely upward sloping. It's purely a positive function. So the firm chooses, if the price is high, the firm chooses a quantity such that the price equals marginal cost. And if the price is lower than what am I saying? Yeah, no, that's, I didn't pick the good curve there. Sorry about that. It's that one. If the price is below the average variable cost, then yeah, the firm doesn't produce it. Let me just briefly state this. So, is above average variable cost, yeah, the minimum. Variable cost and 0 if price is average variable cost. So that's the short run profit. So that's the short run supply, right? So if the price is above average variable cost, then the firm it's possible that the firm still loses money because there's the factory to pay and the electricity to pay and a bunch of other things, but at least it's useful to start again making up some of these losses. But if the price is so low that it's below average variable cost, it doesn't it's not worth it for the firm. All right, so that was question number, I don't know, 3 or 2. Last question is, so that was 4. Does the firm make a profit? So to know if the firm makes a profit, we have to look at all the firm income and all of the firm's costs as well. So here, average variable cost is just looks at the variable cost. Just looks at what the firm how the costs change as a function of how much the firm produces. But to know if the firm does make a positive or negative profit in the end, we have to include all the costs. So the average cost, the average total cost. So let's do that. I have again the price. And again, my marginal cost. Which can have basically any shape. So what does the firm decide? It always decides the same thing. Price equals marginal cost. And then let's go back to profit. So profit is price times quantity minus total cost. And let's do the same trick as we did last time. So let's multiply and divide by quantity here. So quantity and then divide by quantity. Right, we can do that. It's like multiplying by 1. And then what I can do is rewrite this. We have a Q here and we have a Q here. So let's put it in front. So we have quantity times price minus total cost divided by Q. And what is total cost divided by Q? Yes, exactly. Average total cost. So the profit is the quantity multiplied by this difference there. It's going to be positive if the price is above the average total cost. It's going to be negative if the price is below the average total cost. And of course, always at this quantity there, the quantity such that the price equals marginal cost. So what does the average total cost look like? We did discuss that briefly before. So it's very, very high, infinite, essentially, for a quantity of 0. Why? Because I have this this factory to pay. So imagine I'm Elon Musk, and I just built my gigafactory in Texas. And then how much do I choose to produce? Well, if I produce 1 car, so what's the average total cost of this factory? Well, it's the price of the gigafactory divided by 1 car. So it's astronomical. So of course, if I'm Elon Musk and I'm building a gigafactory, what do I want to do with it? I want to produce as much as possible to make up for the average, to make up for all the fixed costs I had to pay to build it. So this is how the average total cost looks like. So it's very, very high initially. But it looks almost the same as the average variable cost. It's just that it starts much, much higher. And then, as we have discussed previously, it's always the same. It's going to be crossed at its minimum by the marginal cost. So even though it's much better to produce much more if I have a big firm, if at some point my production becomes inefficient and my marginal cost increases too much, then it's not worth it to produce an infinite amount. I'm always stuck with this price equal marginal cost. And then what will be my profit? Well, it's price margin minus average total cost times quantity. Yeah, no. I just said that what I care about is this. Okay. And this is my okay, so price minus average total cost at 2 star multiplied by 2 star. So this is, and here I was, so am I happy here? Is it good for the firm here? This, is it a positive or negative profit? Yeah, so we're optimistic today. We have disturbing news around the world, so let's at least make ourselves optimistic. So here, things are going well for our firm, but imagine that the price is not this price, but it dips very low. So imagine that the price is like here, for instance. So it's P prime, for instance. Then what is going to be the situation? Then again, if I want to find out what the production is, it's always price equals marginal cost. So it would be here. And in that case, would I get a positive or a negative profit? Well, sadly, I just have to look. Oh, this is my average total cost, and it's below the market price. So I'm making losses here. Positive profit. Okay. Negative profits. What's the lowest profit that the firm could have? Yeah, so actually here it's not I should, if my drawing was complete, I would draw the average variable cost too, but I think it's getting too messy. But we have said that if the price becomes super low, imagine the price is 0. So what's the profit if the price is 0? Yes, but what's my total cost if the price is 0? Yeah, exactly, my fixed cost. So lowest possible profit minus fixed cost. Why? Because if the price we said is below the average variable cost, the firm just closes down. and just says, okay, it's just so bad today, I'm not even going to open, but I have to pay my factory or my whatever fixed cost I have, regardless of the amount of production I make. So the minimum profit is going to be minus fixed cost. Yeah, so this is, of course, is if I do produce. Okay, so I think it's mostly good. So what I would like to do now is questions about all of this. It's a bit intense, in my opinion, but because we have lots of curves, lots of things going on, but it's the heart of microeconomics and firms. This is just you're going to see this everywhere. So not the last time you see this, so don't worry. Plus, yeah, the mathematics here is some addition of mine in the sense that they don't emphasize all that much, but I think it's very good to see that it's very easy to understand why these curves are the way they are, why the things are the way they are. Zero. Oh, maybe that was a question, an answer to my question about what's the lowest profit possible. No, sadly, it's not zero. All right, so let me see. Then go back to the slides. Yeah, so now we're just going to look back at what we have done so far, but at least understand what they're saying. Yeah, so this is the point that what I was making earlier, is that at the market level, you have a downward sloping demand. But what you have to understand is from the point of view of a single firm, that single firm does not have a production decision between 100 million and 200 million, for which it would be able to observe this downward sloping demand curve. It's just a tiny sliver of the demand curve. And from the firm's perspective, whatever I do, I don't observe really that people want to pay less. I just observe that they want to pay always the same quantity. So that's why the price of the firm faces is essentially fixed. Yeah. And so we have seen that total revenue is price times quantity. Average revenue is price times quantity divided by quantity. So what is it? It is price. Yes. What is marginal revenue? The marginal revenue is the extra revenue the firm gets from selling an extra unit, and it is so delta T, total revenue divided by delta Q. And so we see, of course, that it's just sorry, yeah, it's just because of course whatever the quantity is by extra revenue from an extra unit, it's just that market price. So this is a neat exercise to show you how total revenue changes and average revenue changes with price, but that's not a lot going on because the price is always 3,353. So then the total revenue is price times quantity. So 3 times 10, 3 times 11, 3 times 12, and the average is always 3, and the marginal is always 3 as well. Short-run decision. So the most important is, so you look at profits, total revenue minus total cost. Yeah. So these are all the questions that I've been answering so far. So yeah, like I just said, the firm produces nothing, it would have an operating loss that is equal to its fixed cost. If the firm decides to produce, then it would add the variable cost to its production, of production to its cost. But of course, in return, it has revenue at least. Yeah, so all of these are, if you just read this, then it doesn't ring a bell too much, but knowing that what we've seen so far, it makes total sense. So it must pay its fixed cost in any event. So the only question is it worth it to produce and add additional costs or not? Yeah, so yeah, so the firm should not produce at all for all level of output. If for all level of output, the total revenue is less than the total variable cost. Otherwise, you're paying the fixed cost plus you're still wasting even more money. So you don't want to do that. So the minimum of the average variable cost is yes. So something that I didn't see in the graph there. This is the minimum or the shutdown price. So that's the critical value at which you say, okay, it's too low, I'm going to shut down, not produce. Yeah, prices below this, profit maximizing firm will produce no output whatsoever. Yeah, so this is the decision that the firm faces. So the minimum of the average price is P0, and that's the shutdown price. Below that, the firm does not produce at all. So next question is, if the firm decides to produce, then what's the optimal production level? As we've said, its price equals marginal cost. Yeah, so yeah, so this one actually is, so I'm going to go, so this is what we've seen. So the firm chooses price, which is marginal revenue and average revenue 2, equals to marginal cost. So that dictates this quantity there. So this is always per unit. So we have averages and we have marginals. But you could also look at the total revenue and the total cost in a similar graph. So instead of looking at averages and marginal, you just look at total. And then what do you get? You get this graph there. So if this graph confuses you, then you can always look at this one. Personally, I don't think it's that useful because it's yeah, it's not as easy to see what's going on, but it's the same exact thing. So here, yeah, so the total revenue is the curve is actually an upward sloping curve, and the slope of this total revenue curve, somebody knows? Maybe it's going a bit fast. So here is the total revenue is how much revenue I make as function of quantity produced. So if I say I produce quantity, imagine that this is equal to 20 and the price is equal to 10. So what's my total revenue? Yeah, so this is Yeah, so here the marginal revenue is this one, it's the price. So this is in per unit. So all this graph is per unit. And then what I just said is it's possible to look at things not on a per unit basis, but on a total basis. So not look at average total cost or average variable cost, but total cost, variable cost, marginal cost. So, and I can show it to you on this graph there, or there's a suggestion there. Yes, thank you, Bagdan. So, yes, if the quantity is 20 and the price is 10, then the total revenue is going to be 10 times 20, 200. So if I increase to the quantity to 21, then the price, then the total revenue is going to be 21 times 10, so 210. So what this is the slope here of this total revenue curve? The slope is the market price. It's how much my total revenue increases if I increase production. And then what matters is the total cost curve. So what I want essentially is to maximize the difference between the total revenue and total cost. So which point is the best for me? Well, you see that if I produce 0, what is this difference there? Yes, awesome, thank you. So this is the fixed cost. So let me try and be fancy this morning. How beautiful is that? So this is the fixed cost. If I produce 0, I have a net loss. And then I start producing, but it turns out that initially the price is still very low, so it's not enough to make up the economic loss. And then there's some point at which, I'm starting to make some profit. And here I'm in the green. So this is the zone where I should want to be. And where is the optimal point? Well, the optimal point is the point at which the profit, so the difference between the total revenue and the total cost, is maximized. What is this point? Well, it's exactly here. It's the point at which the slope of the total revenue curve is exactly equal to the slope of the total cost curve. Is there somebody who said something? You see that? So, and what does this represent? The fact that this slope is equal to that slope? So I just said the slope of the total revenue is price. What is the slope of the total cost? Yes, but so what's the slope of the total cost? Here. Yes, marginal cost, right? So I think it's, so that's why I won't, okay, I'm not going to spend too much on energy on this. It's, if you've done calculus before, everything looks super natural, but if you haven't, then it can get confusing. So, but still it's neat for you to just look at what's happening there. So the decision that maximizes profits, which is the difference between the total revenue and the total cost, is to produce a quantity such that the difference between these two slopes is maximized, and you get that when the slope of the total revenue curve equals the slope of the total cost curve. And what is the slope is marginal cost. And lo and behold, what have we seen from previously? Well, we have seen that this is exactly what we get at the optimal decision when the price equals the marginal cost. So this is the per unit version of this thing there. So if the slope of the total revenue equals the slope of the total cost, then it means that so the price is the slope and the marginal cost is the slope. So the two are equal. So yeah, for those who have done calculus, very easy. For those who haven't, not easy whatsoever. So let me stop here so that you don't get confused. That's the thing with these slides. Some of them are, they just throw at you some graphs that are interesting, but not necessarily easy to just grasp with a few strokes. So anyways, the classic way we analyze things is this way. So you don't have to torment yourself too much with that one, all right? But still, it's nice to see that if you produce zero, you make losses, and then you start having positive profits, and then okay. One last thing I should say is the following. So what would be the shutdown price on this graph? The minimum price at which you just decide to not produce whatever. Well, it's the price such that you never make a positive profit. So here is the total revenue. So the slope of the price. So if I have a different total revenue curve with a price that is lower, and then I sort of never hit this total cost curve, then it means that whatever quantity I would be producing, I would always be below the total revenue would always be below the total cost. So I would never be having a profit. So that would be the shutdown price there. But yeah, let me not add this to the graph. Okay. Yeah, so this is what we said before. So if the firm does decide to produce, then it chooses marginal cost equals price, and so that's the quantity it will produce. And here in that case, since the marginal cost is above the total average cost, then the firm does make a profit, a positive profit, right? Yeah, so yeah, here they haven't drawn everything, so I'm just going to add this last segment there. Yeah, that would mean the supply. So if the price is too low, there's the quantity is zero. And that's essentially this. So that's the short run supply curve that we've just seen at the beginning of the class. It looks like this. Okay. Yeah. And then what happens for at the market level? What at the market level, you just add up the supply of all the firms on the market. So here I have, for instance, one firm, one supply of one firm, one supply of the other firm. Then what do? I add quantities together because firm one produces certain quantity and firm two produces certain quantity. So for a single price, let's say for a price of 3, then you add up the quantity of firm 1, which is 4, to the quantity of firm 2, which is 3. So you get a total quantity of 7. And here, what's this weird looking kink? Well, it's just because between 1 and 2, there's only this firm that will produce. And then when you hit 2, then both firms are starting to produce. So that's why the slope here, this is essentially this segment there. And then this is the addition of these two segments together. Don't worry, you're not going to have to aggregate stuff at the exam. I will be very, I will try to protect you and remove a question in which you would have to aggregate these curves. That's complicated enough. But so just as you know, so this is how you do it. So you add, so you pick a price, P equals 3, and then you add up what firm 1, firm 2, firm 3, firm 4 produce. And then you get the total industry supply curve. So that's the supply curve you've been used to. That can, right? Okay. All right. So when an industry is in short-run equilibrium, then the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. Each firm is maximizing its profit given the market price. So here you need to add this market demand essentially. Yeah, so when the industry is in short-run equilibrium, a competitive firm may be making losses, breaking even, or making a profit. And so we've just seen this. So if you make a profit, it's because the price is above the average total cost. If you make a loss, it's because the price is below the average total cost. So this is the critical situation where you don't make a profit and don't make a loss, because the market price is exactly P2. It's exactly at the minimum of the average total cost. Because of course it always has to be the case that the price crosses the marginal cost at the P2. And we said that previously that the marginal cost always crosses the average total cost at its minimum. So then when the price equals to the minimum of the average total cost, then there is no loss and no positive profit. So that's it's just the break-even point. That's not super happy story if you're a firm owner to know that you don't make a profit, but at least you're not losing money. That's it. And so this is the nice situation in which the price is high enough that you do make a positive economic profit. And of course, the sad story is the other, is when the price is so low that you do produce, but still you don't make up the fixed cost. So the profit is between minus fixed cost and zero. So that's, and you see that it's negative because it's below the average total cost. And then that's not a nice situation. Okay, so, but what's going to happen in the long run? So if, for instance, say, start with this situation right there. So if the market price is very low and firms are making losses, so what's going to happen? Are they just going to waste money? Yes? Yeah, exactly. So if firms negative profit, then at some point, some of them are going to be out of money, or rather they're going to the bank for the 10 times in the same year, and they say, yeah, please, I'm going to get out of my hole, but so please help me again. And at some point, the banker is going to say, no, I don't trust you anymore. I think I'm never going to see my money again. It was a bad investment decision, but that's the way it is. So I'm not lending you any more money. So then at that point, you don't have any more reason to continue. So firms will close down. So if firms close down, or what the nice way of saying it is exit the market. So then what happens if they do that? Well, the market supply becomes smaller. So market shifts to the left. So this is, so imagine, for instance, that here there's firm 1 and firm 2, but for some reason firm 2 was making a loss and exits. So instead of having two firms on the market, I only have one. So probably that my supply would look like this. Well, it would exactly look like firm 1. It's just it's smaller. So the total market supply will shift to the left. And it will, of course, cross the demand at a price which is higher than before because it shifts to the left. So the equilibrium market price will increase. So note that the price will increase not because of the voluntary decision of any single firm, but because of the aggregate decision of a bunch of firms on the market that were losing money. If they exit, then that's just how the market is going to react. So the equilibrium market price will increase. And then, so if the equilibrium market price increase, then remaining firm will make a profit again, or will stop having losses. All right, so this is how the market will adjust in the long run. And of course, the reverse is true for gains. So if firms have positive profits, then firms will enter the market. Why do they enter the market? Well, there is no intrinsic barrier to entry. So everybody can just start producing and gain something. So if, say, cars become a thing again and there's good profit, then I'm going to quit my job and start producing cars because I want to make money in this sector. But then what happens, of course, is then the supply shifts to the right. And the equilibrium market price will decrease. So remaining firms, or not remaining firms, but firms will stop having positive profit. So what do we make of these two stories? So what is the stable situation? So if nothing changes in the very long run, what should be the firm's profits? Zero. So that's very depressing because everybody imagines, yeah, of course firms make profit, and that's why they're rich, and that's why being a CEO makes you rich. Well, if we are in a situation of perfect competition, that's just the way it is. All firms are equal, and they just grasp at any small amount of money they can make so that they always outcompete each other. So by the way, maybe I talked about this or not before, but so if you go and if you look at the TV show Shark Tank or other TV shows, when you have some entrepreneur that comes on the show and says, "Oh yeah, look at my new idea, it's awesome. Please invest in my company. You're going to make a fortune." The killer question is always the same. It's what's your unfair advantage? So why do they ask what's your unfair advantage? Well, because they know that if the person doesn't have one, if what I claim I'm going to do can be perfectly well copied by anybody else, then why should they invest in me particularly? They can, because I might make some money for a month or two, but at some point my competitors are just going to make the same thing as me, and my profits are going to vanish. So it wouldn't be a good investment. So why would people still start a business? Because they all have the same dream, is not be in perfect competition. So they want to have some unfair advantage which makes life difficult for their competitors and make it difficult for their competitors to outcompete them and take their profit away. So yeah, the dream of every firm in perfect competition is not be a perfect competition, but be in oligopoly or monopoly or monopolistic competition. So all of these things are studied by economists also. It's just that we have to start somewhere. So we start at this situation, which is the sort of easier and simpler to examine. A depressing one because nobody ever makes profit in the long run, but yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah, entry and exit. So if existing firms make a positive economic profit, then new firms have incentive to enter the industry. If firms make a zero profit, then they have no incentive for a new firm to enter and no incentive to exit. And if firms are making economic losses, then they want to exit the industry. So that is exactly the same thing. Yeah, so this is what happens, for instance. So if we start at P0, you make, P0 is above the average total cost, so we make profit. Firms enter the market. That shifts the supply curve to the right. And then at the new equilibrium, so you see that the market price is lower. So one neat thing to note is what's the difference between the equilibrium E0 and E1. So between, yeah. So yeah, okay. E0, you have few firms that produce with high production. Reduction in E1 have more firms because they have entered the market. But look at what happens for one individual firm. Well, the production went from Q0 to Q1. So each single firm has a lower production. So and as a whole, the higher number of firms outweigh the fact that each firm produces a bit less. So on average, not on average, but yeah, as a whole, on aggregate, capital Q1 is larger than capital Q0. But for any single firm, the Q1 is actually lower than Q0. And then this is the reverse. So if firms are making losses, so the average total cost is above the market price at P0. So firms exit the market, and then Q0 increases to Q1. So at P0, so many firms, more production, and that E1, yeah, fewer firms, and larger production. So that's how they are able to make money. So of course, if you're a firm, then the more you produce, the better things are for you. So you can read all this text, but it's I'm too old to read this, so let's move on. A question? Yeah, so this is what I've been saying. So the long run and industry equilibrium of a competitive industry occurs when firms are earning zero profits. So the price of the industry is the break-even price. The break-even price is the price at which a firm is just able to produce to cover all its costs, including the opportunity cost of capital. Yeah. So one thing to note there is that so with fixed costs comes investment and all these things. So if a firm looks like it's making a profit, so is it because the firm is so it's breaking the law of perfect competition? No, it's just because you have to account for all of the previous costs that were paid by the firm to really be able to produce, and innovation is part of it. So imagine new inventors, what are they trying to do? They're trying to spend a bunch of money to create a product that's very good, that's going to allow them to make a profit. But of course, so some of them just don't make it. So lots of products, they look good, but at some point they don't work. And the firms just never make it to past 1 month or 2 months. So if you have a bunch of firms that do make a profit, then that's because you have a whole bunch of firms that made losses too. So, and on average, if you look at the, so if you have well-functioning markets, it should be that the anticipated profit of starting a business should be zero, because some of them make up, some of them make it, some of them don't make it, but on average, they should make zero. Yeah, so long run equilibrium. So existing firm must be maximizing their profit. Existing firm must not be suffering losses. Existing firm must not be earning profits. Existing firm must not be able to increase their profit by changing the size of their production facilities. Okay, so yeah, so this is long run equilibrium. So what's the difference between the long run and short run? There is very little difference. It's just, as we've said, in the long run, you can vary all your inputs. You don't have one fixed input, but the situation is the same on the market. It's that firms are going to be stuck with making zero profit. It's just that in the long run, you have also the fact that you can plan ahead and decide the scale of your but it's still a depressing situation. So this is what would happen in the long run. So you would have so this is a short run situation in which in the short run average total cost is equal to the marginal cost. But you can see that the short run average total cost is above the long run average cost. What does that mean? Well, it means that essentially a firm that did decide to produce the quantity zero there did make a very good decision because essentially it could have decided to invest more, say buy more capital, so that so its short run average total cost could have been, say, the same, but just right here, for instance. So yeah, so but that the same dynamic exists. Here is just in the short run, you have a temporary situation where you maximize the profit given the amount of capital you did have. But in the long run, what would happen? Well, if all the firms are here, and I know that the shape of the long run average cost is here, then as a firm, I should just say, oh, I'm going to invest more, have a better production, and be able to make a profit. But of course, all of my competitors would choose the same thing, and the market price would start to go down, and it's going to go down to where? To the minimum of the long run average cost. So in the very, very long run, so this is the ultimate situation where all firms just cover their costs and they don't make a profit. So here it is. So if you want to look at the case, I would say imagine that we take Canada as it is, and then the population stops changing, the technology stops changing. There's the imports and imports always the same, and then you just let Canada go on forever. Then eventually all markets would adjust to this situation there, where the market price equals to the minimum of the short-run average total cost, the minimum of the long-run average total cost, and the marginal cost, since, as we've said, the marginal cost always crosses at the minimum of average cost. So this is really the steady state situation. Of course, that's temporary. Things change, technology changes, opportunity changes, opportunities change. But yeah, that's what would happen in the very long run. Questions about this? Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. Exactly. So that's what the technological change is. Is, for instance, I find a way to say produce something with this. Generally, that's what would happen is, oh, I find a better process to produce, say, cars again, but I need a bigger factory. So then, as an inventor, my new long-run average total cost curve is lower, but probably the its minimum is like here. So what I'm going to do is invest so that in my short run, I would be here and I would make a very good profit. But again, if my competitors are able to emulate me, then everybody would start investing the same amount with this newer technology and make it work. So in real life, is it easy to copy people? Well, not exactly. So think of it again of Elon Musk. So he managed to make rockets land by themselves. So it was so hard to invent this rocket, and it took him many years and so much investment, but now he managed to do it. And so he has such a commanding position in the market. I wouldn't imagine some other firm really. So imagine you're saying, oh, I'm going to make rockets land to compete against it. Well, he's there, he's taking the whole market. Good luck to you. It's a very tough thing to challenge somebody who has such a lead in technology in real life. So the best firms are actually those that are always able to. So they get there, but then their competitors try and get there, and then they're like, oh no, but actually I just invented something even better, and I'm even down there. So they always outcompete themselves actually. So this is the best, yeah, the best thing that they can do is always innovate, basically. But in perfect competition, we see that every firm can copy everybody for free. So yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. So tech changes in technology. So if there's a change in technology, then the price is equal to the average total cost of existing plants. But so suppose there's some technological development that lowers the cost of new build plants, then plants with new technology earn economic profits. And so other new plants will enter the industry with this new profit. And so the only chance for older firms is to actually copy them or try to imitate them. Yeah. All right. We just finished this and yeah. So expanding the industry output drives the price down. We call short-run average total cost of the new plants. But plants with old technology may continue, but they will, if they don't adapt, then the only thing that they will be able to do is earn losses because the new firms entering the industry drive the price down. So if you don't adapt, then you just basically you have to exit the market. So here's, for instance, an old firm, and then there's a new firm that entered the market. So then the price became much lower than was good for that old firm to make a profit. That firm is just in the middle. So that one actually it's yeah. So that one is like on the brink of not producing because you see that it's just so at the marginal cost equals price, then you see that it's just the minimum and the average variable cost. So that firm could eventually even just not produce at all. That one actually does make up some of its losses, but still it's making losses, and eventually it's going to close down. And that's the newest, the newer firm with the lowest of the average total costs. Yeah. Declining industry. So what happened when a competitive industry in the long run experiences a continual decrease in demand? So then this is a very interesting point. It's you observe antiquated equipment, but is the antiquated equipment the cause of the declining industry? No, not necessarily the cause. Rather, it's often just the side effect of it. Is if I'm in a declining industry, I go to the bank and I say, yeah, my industry is declining, but please give me something so I can modernize myself. The bank says, well, you're in the declining industry. I don't think it's a good investment. So just stick with your old equipment for a while before you just close down. It's just so that's what happens in declining industries. So something like coal production in the US. So it's still much more technologically advanced than it used to be 50 years ago, but it's a declining industry and it's never going to come back. Yeah, I think so. That's the last, yes, last slide. So that's good for today, and